Watching KTN News, welcome back to News Diary as we continue to bring you stories making headlines. But now I want us to go to Spice FM and follow up a conversation that happened earlier on matters to do with picketing, security and the rule of law. That conversation will be had by Macharia Njeru, who is the former chair of IPOA and former vice chair JSC. Let's follow up on that conversation.
Of the Judicial Service Commission, and previously he had served as chairman of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. Macharia, were you the first chair of IPOA?
Yes, I was the first chair. Actually, I helped found IPOA. We were the ones who set it up.
Very good.
Right from the inception.
Very good.
That's right.
You are the right man to sit on the hot seat today.
Thank you.
You will explain to us. But before we do that, Ndu will tell you about Roy Sambu. You know Roy Sambu?
Yes, I do.
Very good. And you also, you know the Aga Khan University Hospital.
Yes, I do.
Now those two come together.
Yes, they do. They've come together, and what has happened now is that in Roy Sambu is a new specialty care centre, and it's all based on the idea that, look, quality healthcare you shouldn't have to travel far to get it, right? So the Roy Sambu Specialty Care Centre is at Jewel Plaza, and what they've done is said, okay, how about we bring in a number of specialists, we introduce a number of services so that you don't have to go far to get this care, dialysis, chemotherapy, endoscopy, etc., and we also have several specialists on board, from surgeons to oncologists, gastroenterologists, everybody there all day to make sure that you can actually get the medical care and attention that you need. It's at Jewel Plaza on the Roy Sambu roundabout. It's universal quality healthcare here and now.
Yeah, it's a good story. Yeah?
That's what the government should actually be doing. By now, many years after independence, it shouldn't be so difficult for ordinary Kenyans to enjoy, good healthcare.
Yeah.
But of course, government out, they've all failed, because they don't care much about the public interest, a lot of times about a personal interest, which is rather unfortunate.
Siti will welcome you with the day's proverb, but before he gives you the proverb, he'll also tell you how to make money, okay? If you have 50,000 shillings today, Macharia, Siti can help you convert it to 1 million shillings in 2 months.
I'm in the right place then.
50,000 shillings to 1 million in 2 months. Siti, tell him.
You know, there are many banking institutions, but there's one particular one that is presenting those who bank with them, with something that they would find interesting. The bank is called Stanbic Bank, and they're saying, look, we'd like you to switch. And to welcome you into this switch, we're saying, if you open an account with us and you deposit 50,000 shillings, what then will happen is immediately you will be entered into a monthly draw. This monthly draw gives you a chance to win 200,000 shillings as a first prize, first runner-up. I used to say second. I was told it's first runner-up. There's no second nowadays. And there's even no third. Second runner-up.
First runner-up.
First runner-up is 100,000. Second runner-up is 50,000. But it doesn't stop there. There is a draw that takes place after the 3 months since the initiation of this particular program. And when that comes about, you stand to win 1 million shillings. First runner-up will win 500,000 shillings. Second runner-up will win 300,000 shillings. Did I say 50 million? No, I said 500,000 shillings, not 50 million.
No, winner gets 1 million.
First runner-up, 500,000. Third runner-up, third.
Second runner-up.
Second runner-up, who is actually third. Man, this runner-up thing is really confusing me. 300,000 shillings. But it doesn't stop there. If you are seeking a mortgage, this is what they're saying. Come to us. We'll offer you a mortgage at 9.5%. And it is constant. It will not go up. It will not go down. It will stay at 9.5% for the duration of time. And if you have a mortgage elsewhere and you want to switch, we welcome you. And the rates will be the same, 9.5%. Now, surely that is worth looking into, and that is worth calling them and talking to them about.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Stanbic Bank. Say switch and win. So, the day's proverb, City?
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the Republic of Angola. What has been wet by rain cannot be wet by the fog.
What has been wet by rain cannot be wet by the fog. What's your interpretation of this, Wakili?
My take on it is that what has happened or what ought to happen will still happen regardless, in the sense that you may try to, interpret things differently. You may try to change. You may try to, stop what really has to happen, or, as they say sometimes, you can't change the direction of a river. Once it has taken its course, it has taken its course. And no matter how much effort you may try to stop it, it's impossible to stop it. And in fact, I would relate it even to the current situation of Gen Zs.
Yeah.
When they are fighting for certain causes, when they are fighting for certain rights that they believe has been denied to them, when they think that the direction is not right, it's much easier just to relate to what they are racing, compromise and look at where did the rain start beating us, rather than fighting it, because no matter how much you try to fight it, it won't just stop. It won't fizzle away.
Understand it first.
Understand it. Identify with them, Understand the spirit and the mood of the nation at any given time. Align with it. And then when you're within it, just make things happen. Because at the end of the day, it's what the public wants, and you can't stop that. And I think that's where the failure of most of our leaders comes in. They want to relate with their personal feelings as opposed to the wishes and aspirations of the public.
Relate to personal feelings as opposed to what the public
What
wants.
everybody wants.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because when you're in leadership, actually, you're a trustee at whatever level. Sometimes the problem with our leaders is that they confuse the leadership as an entitlement or as a right, as a personal right. They forget that they do it in trust for the people. And you're only given that position for a time. Whichever leader you are, once that time comes, you leave.
Yeah.
You already called me a former chair of IPOA. I was a chair at one time, being called chairman. I am not. That's the reality of life. I was vice chair of JSC for a time. I am not. So even a president, even an MP, even a cabinet secretary, we all serve for a time, and you leave, and others will come in.
Okay.
So it's all about understanding that you are there for a time, for a purpose, and your time to leave will come, whether you like it or not. Yeah.
You will help us to understand a couple of things in our conversation today, hopefully. I want to start from the farthest, which is you came from the private sector, you came into government, you served in a government institution, and then you went into another government institution. And people look at, people who are in government institutions, particularly in these commissions, and you're like, my God, it's like your life changes from, one side to the other side completely. And then you come back to where you started, and you have maybe to try and adjust with the new realities of after being called chairman and people pressing the lift for you and holding the door open for you and giving you a vehicle and all those things. You'll tell us about that. But I want to start on the rule of law and what we are seeing currently in the country. The day before yesterday, Monday night, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, it's a constitutional commission, reported to us that 39 people had died since these protests began. 361 had been injured. 627 had been arrested. And those that had been abducted or had just disappeared and not communicating with their family members, 32. And most of these are attributed to police. IPOA is the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. Let's start from, why is it called policing oversight and not police oversight?
Primarily because the role of IPOA as set under our constitutional dispensation was to ensure that there's oversight over all matters policing. Because remember, there are times that it's not just the police who are undertaking police duties. For instance, recently you saw KDF being brought in. There are times, and it's allowed within the law, especially during the elections, where even KWS, even Forest Service, they are also embedded with the police, to provide adequate resourcing on matters policing. That's why it's at that time, when they are given police powers, they become also police, which is why it's about oversighting policing to ensure that there are no human rights abuses. And the IPOA was meant to have adequate capacity to ensure that at any given time, even like, for instance, now during the demonstrations, And we used to do that when I was at IPOA. As the demonstration is being carried out, you're supposed to have inspectors who are accompanying police real time, and you're able to even take pictures, even videography, and ensure that you are seeing real time how the police are conducting themselves, that you're not firefighting looking for evidence later. So policing goes beyond being reactive, but also proactively ensuring that the processes and how police are supposed to conduct themselves and how they are supposed to carry out their duty is in strict compliance with the law.
Whose rights are you safeguarding? The public or the police?
It is the rights of the public, because at the end of the day, it's holding police to account. The whole idea about IPOA is to hold the police to account, understanding that you've given them very vast powers, which includes not only arresting, but also they could also take life. Remember, police are the people who have the monopoly of violence.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are allowed to carry firearms, and they can always use them against the public. But they can't just use it in a reckless manner. It has to be in strict compliance with the law. And in fact, what you'll notice that, and I must also state, Eric, that I am actually the one who led the team that drafted the current police laws. And there's a Schedule 6 that we drafted that is very strict about how police are supposed to use their firearms, or even how they are supposed to arrest. And there are steps. If you look at that Schedule 6, there are clear steps. And these steps also include involvement of the superior officer, the commander, because police, even when they're in the field, they have a commander. They have somebody, a specific officer who is supposed to be in charge of them, because police act on command and control at any given time. There's the issue of individual responsibility. In fact, the law is very clear that a police officer cannot obey unlawful order. And the commander or the superior officer at any given time is supposed to ensure that in the event there's the use even of discharge of a bullet, they are supposed to take custody of that evidence and inform IPOA immediately. Within 24 hours, even do it in writing, including indicating anybody who has been injured, and even provide medical assistance. And there are steps, like I said, before you even discharge that firearm.
Sorry.
Can
Can I just take you back just a little bit? So we're talking about discharging a firearm in whatever circumstance.
In whatever circumstances.
So whether it is going after a criminal that is known,
yes,
or whether it is like we saw during protests.
Absolutely.
If a firearm is discharged for whatever reason, the procedure is that you report the circumstances under which the firearm was discharged and every other detail. Is that
absolutely. And you see, these requirements are couched in mandatory terms.
Okay.
So it's not like there's a discretion of the police officer when to report and when not to report.
Okay.
And what is supposed to happen is that they're supposed to inform IPOA immediately by whatever means necessary. Then within 24 hours, follow it up in writing. It's a mandatory requirement. So to me, the question then that needs to be asked is why these steps are not being taken, and why IPOA itself is not enforcing it. Because failing to do that is an offense. It's an offense. And in fact, the way the laws were crafted was to make sure that this offense becomes an offense that is personal to the commander of the time, and even also the police officer. Because there was a realization that these regulations were necessary, the schedule was necessary, because of our history. The history had been very bad. But having said that, what I would also say is that my experience with the police is that it's largely dependent on the leadership at any given time. If you have a rogue police at the leadership level, it's always said that the tone will always be set from the top. It has a trickle-down effect.
Yeah.
Then added to that is my experience that the politicians have completely refused to let the police be independent. They may say that the police are independent, but in actual fact, it is not what they say that really matters. A lot of times we say that, it's Ralph Waldo Emerson who said that your actions speak so loudly that I cannot hear what you are saying. So you find that politicians will say the police are independent, but behind the scenes, they're the ones who constantly interfere with them. And it's politicians at all levels. It's not just, at the very highest level. You find that even at the county level, whether it's the governors, whether it's the MPs, that's where you find that even people who are not police, they are being accompanied by police and they're issuing orders, they're even being saluted. The level of indiscipline is so high that the police are not left to do their work correctly. And you'll find that when there's that interference, even the crooked police, because they are being given protection by the political leadership at the time, they cease to become professional. So, yet our constitution is very clear that we have to have an independent police. So we have a constitution that is saying one thing, so there's constitutional imperatives, but there's no constitutionalism in terms of the application of that constitution. And therein lies the problem, and we have to be very consistent as a public in demanding that the police must be completely independent. Then we hold them to account.
Macharia, what would an independent police service look like? How would it operate for us to know, okay, here actually, they are independent in word, in deed? How?
I would compare this, to answer your question, I'd look at London Metropolitan Police, because I recall that we studied extensively, even when I was in IPOA, the London Metropolitan Police. And we went back to the history. There's somebody called Sir Robert Peel who set up the London Metropolitan Police in 1829. And what they did is that they came up with core ideals. They had 3 core ideals and 9 principles. But all of them related to the issue of the public, policing with the consent of the public, where they were able to demonstrate that for you as police to succeed, you must get the consent of the public, because the public don't believe in you and they don't consent to being policed by you. It doesn't matter what you'll do. But again, for that to happen, the public must have confidence. They must see you to be independent, not just in word, but in how you conduct your affairs. They must be very clear that you are policing with the communities. So the relationship must be one that is of mutual respect, where they can see that you are there for them and not against them. So that speaks to exactly what you are saying, that for the public, it is not a question of the police saying that we are independent. The public must see it, because public is not stupid. They'll be able to see when you are being directed from elsewhere. They'll be able to see your conduct. They'll be able to see when you are for them and when you are against them. And you see, it is not correct to say that in Kenya, the public is against the police. It's not true. In fact, a lot of times you find that in spite of the numerous infractions by the police, the public largely will always side with the police, especially when the police are under attack. And even we saw in videos where you see police officers are fighting the public, even in demonstrations. I saw one video where a police officer fell from a truck. But you found the public running and going to help that police officer. Yet that police officer is from attacking the public. So public understand that they need the police for their own security. The problem is that a lot of times the police will not reciprocate. But I'll also tell you, because I'm one person who has interacted with the police a lot for a long time. I started interacting with the police from 2008 after the post-election violence, because I was part of the team that was in the National Task Force on Police Reforms. A lot of police officers are actually decent human beings. What happens, and this is something that we must deal with finality, is that you have these small units that keep being created that you do not know who they answer to, where they take their directions from, and a lot of time they are not part of the regular police. So even as the police are policing in the streets, even when they are dealing with the demonstrators, you will find some other fellows who are part of another unit who are from nowhere, who will come, shoot, and leave. And you don't know who they are. Because you'll even see, and you see now, it's even bad now because, today, there's so much that is happening in the social media. People have phones where they can take pictures. You have also, and you'll see people who are not even identifying themselves. And you see it's a requirement, it's a legal requirement that a police officer must have a name tag. It's a legal requirement.
Whether they are in civilian wear or
they must have, it's a mandatory requirement. And again, the reason why that requirement was put was to avoid a situation whereby you have people whom you do not know who come and misbehave, where they live and take lives, or cause a serious injury on person. You can identify them. And in fact, the requirement that somebody must have a name tag is one that must be enforced by the superior officer at the time. You know, again,
Are they
stemming from-
practical, some of these things, though?
They are practical
example,
because it happens in other jurisdictions.
when police are conducting these very, serious operations, like, the anti-terror police unit, and you see them completely covered up, right? Because they are protecting themselves, because you know that if these terrorists know that you're the one who actually was involved in arresting so and so, they may target you individually as a person.
You know, that's a different situation.
I see, like, that's what, but you're saying all police officers are supposed to be having a name tag at all times. But
No, I was referring to when there's picketing, demonstration, and that kind of thing. I was not referring to those kind of special operations.
Okay.
Because, this schedule is very specific, because remember this Article 37, which provides for the right to picket, a right to demonstrate, present, make presentations to public, authorities. So, right to picket, a police officer cannot claim that that's a special operation that you require to disguise yourself, because you are dealing with the members of the public, at that particular time. So, but you see, you've seen even in the recent occurrences where you are seeing people who are coming, you can't even differentiate between a goon and a police officer.
Fully covered up.
So, it simply doesn't make any sense. So, to me, it's a question of the refusal by the police also, and not all the police, by their leadership to be professional.
I want to hear whether in your time at IPOA, or even after, because you still interact with the news and you can see, whether we have seen instances where IPOA has taken action on such, where police officers, like we've seen in those videos, people in, what color was that vehicle? The pickup?
Red.
And then they
maroon.
come out and they're completely covered and they are behaving like they're police officers. Some of them are carrying firearms. They come and they are involved in this operation and they leave. Are there instances where IPOA has actually followed up and taken action against the officers themselves and their superior?
At least in the IPOA that I served, such things never happened. We never even allowed it anyway. Because what we used to do is that during the demonstrations, we had set up a team that would also be embedded in terms of also carrying out the inspections. And we were very firm and very tough. Because we had even senior police officers, charged in court, jailed. In fact, we even had an OCS even sentenced to death for killing, a member of the public. So, have been taken aback also as a chair. And I think what I'll say is this, Eric. The first commissions and authority that were set up under the Constitution of 2010, they were fairly strong. I think we had come out, there was a lot of excitement and processes were used in terms even of how we, people were recruited and appointed and all that. And I think, and you recall that was soon after, it was during the tail end of Kibaki's leadership. And to be fair to President Kibaki, he allowed institutions to function. And there was a reasonable measure of independence. Because even the time when